Hello everyone, my name is Jack Owen, and this is my term report examining climate and biological interactions at Kamiak Butte. Kamiak Butte is one of the last uncultivated areas of the natural Palouse Prairie. From a distance, it's a mixed conifer forest, a 375-acre pocket of diversity, surrounded by miles of the wheat field monoculture. The butte was also spared from the fate of agricultural production, not due to the benevolence of white settlers, or because of its known significance to migratory wildlife, but because of the impracticality of farming there. Kamiak's fractured substrate denies monocrops the water they require and rewards the reciprocity of a healthy and diverse ecosystem. This is especially true on the north aspect of the butte, where vegetation is shielded from intense solar radiation and prevailing winds. Kamiak's north aspect microsite is about 200 acres in area and supports three main species of coniferous trees. These include Douglas fir, Pseudotsuga menzii, western larch, Larix occidentalis, and ponderosa pine, or Pinus ponderosa. These trees are well adapted to the relatively cool, moist conditions found here and experience a great deal of competition for sunlight, resulting in an average population density of 130 trees per acre and scattering over half of the direct solar radiation. Douglas fir accounts for over 70% of this community. Over on the west side of the north aspect, the tree density is mostly split between ponderosas and Douglas firs. This area has the highest density of ponderosas. Fortunately, Kamiak Butte has not had as severe fire suppression as much of the forests in the American West, and the observed density is estimated to be similar to the natural fire-adapted habitat. Bark beetles are a family of beetles who feed on the inner wood of many species of pine tree. They are primary consumers and occupy the second trophic level within their food web. There are over 500 species native to North America, and they play an integral role in the functioning of a healthy ecosystem by attacking old and vulnerable trees and turning them into usable nutrients by other healthy organisms. Here we will be focusing on a specific species of beetle named the mountain pine beetle, Dendroctonus ponderosa. This specific species of bark beetle is about as large as a grain of rice and prefers to live in and feed on the living tissues of ponderosa pines, especially stressed or weakened individuals. These adult beetles will land on a pine tree and burrow into a crevice on the outer bark layer in order to reach the phloem. Once here, they will burrow along the inner bark, creating galleries, like the one seen here. This is where they live out most of their lives, feeding and laying eggs. Once mature, the beetles will emerge and fly to their next host. They thrive in forests with high tree density because of the greater chance of finding a susceptible host once they emerge. These beetles have a symbiotic relationship with a certain species of fungus which benefit the survival of both organisms. This species, known as blue stain fungus, Grossmania clavigera, is capable of infecting a tree and staining its inner wood blue. Since these species have evolved together, the beetle has developed a mycangium, a special structure on its head designed to harbor the fungus and infect the tree once the beetle has found a host. The transmission to the tree occurs as the beetle feeds on the phloem. Once infected, the blue stain fungus grows into the phloem and xylem and begins to block the tree's tubules, preventing the transport of water and nutrients to the top of the tree. This also has an added effect of preventing the tree from producing its defensive resin, which is designed to expel or suffocate the beetles. So, here we can see the pine beetles transport the fungus to new hosts, and the fungus helps protect the beetles from the host defenses, each guaranteeing the survival of the other. Over the past decade, there have been enormous outbreaks of these beetles across the western U.S., wiping out millions of acres of coniferous forest. These outbreaks are speculated to be a result of climate change. The outbreaks are a mixed result of higher beetle populations and of higher tree vulnerability. The limiting factor controlling the population and dispersal of these insects is temperature. The higher temperature for longer portions of the year allows for more time for the beetles to travel further distances. Also, in warmer climates, a lengthening of the summer season could allow for 2 generations of beetle to be born, as opposed to just one. As we can see from the Google Earth satellite imagery, there have been a small area of ponderosas killed by the beetles on the west side of the north aspect. Their needles, starved for nutrients, have turned brown. From this, we can see that tree mortality is concentrated. This could just suggest that the trees at this particular spot are vulnerable to infestation, or the pine beetle has recently arrived and has yet to spread. Another effect of climate change is more frequent and severe droughts. These droughts can have a significant impact on the health and the susceptibility of pine trees. When there is less water available to a tree, the tree will try and conserve water any way it can, usually by slowing transpiration and photosynthesizing less. Another use of water that is curtailed by drought is self-defense. A pine tree's main defense against beetle infestation is to physically push the beetles out by filling the boreholes with sap. This phenomenon has been observed in a locality of ponderosas on Kamiak's north aspect. These trees were observed to have buildups of sap randomly distributed along the trunk. Unfortunately, the ponderosas succumbed to the beetles and the pictured specimens have died. When a tree is stressed due to drought and has no excess water available, it is extremely vulnerable to beetle and fungal infection. If the tree defends itself, it will have no water to use in transpiration, and photosynthesis will cease, effectively starving the tree to death. This increased vulnerability has allowed the beetles to spread beyond their usual habitat and in unprecedented numbers. This is cause for concern since the infestations are more likely to result in tree mortality. These parasites are native, however the recent and coming climatic shifts have given them the potential to cause much higher tree mortality. Kamiak Butte sees about 5.5 inches of precipitation during the annual growing season, usually between May and September. Our most recent drought in eastern Washington was in 2021, where the growing season only saw about 2.5 inches of precipitation, less than half of what was expected. In this figure, the drought is shown by the red bars, contrasted to the average precipitation shown by the blue bars. The temperatures are shown by the lines and are included to depict the length of the growing season. This undoubtedly had severe impacts on the health of the flora on Kamiak. There were trees observed to have been killed by the beetles, whose pine needles were still attached, suggesting that they had died since this drought. This should be cause for concern, but not yet action. The beetle population should be closely monitored and surveyed in order to find new attacks, especially in years of drought. This could give forest managers foresight and, if needed, time to implement preventative measures before any irreversible damage is done.